Our next speaker is going to be Seamus McAteer at Neustar, Vice President of Market Development. He focuses on the intersection of micro-proximity technologies like Bluetooth beacons and marketing cloud platforms. People that know my lack of digital capabilities will know why I have to read this directly off the card. He joined Neustar as part of the acquisition of DataSnap.io, where he was founder and CEO before it was bought by Neustar, and that seems to be a pattern in his career. Before that, he was with M-Metrics, a company he co-founded and led as a board member, and then that was acquired by ComScore. And Metro Revolver, a mobile platform that he founded as CEO, and that was ultimately acquired by Millennial Media. So the Neustar people, I don't know who's going to acquire you next, but with that, let me introduce Seamus.
Thank you, guys.
We met with you guys.
How are you? I just want to get a feeling for who's in the room. How many people here are media owners, publishers, work at publishers? So a smattering. How many people work at agencies? And how many people work in ad tech and related? And brands? Okay, so fairly representative. So I'm here today, I'm talking, again, to sort of build on the last conversation. I'll probably get into the weeds a little bit more, talking about how we've begun to use mobile location data to inform targeting for digital out-of-home media. But more broadly, I want to have a conversation about the value of location data and how that's evolved. And this is just one application for that data. A little bit about Neustar. We process a lot of data. Neustar is a public company. The foundation for the business is identity management. We apply that in a number of verticals: telecom, security, marketing services. Marketing services is the growth engine of the business. We are a leader in DNS routing and in registry. We manage billions of virtual addresses. Transactionally, we're involved in the routing of billions of text messages, phone calls. You get the picture. Lots and lots of data, big data, transactional data. And one of the foundations for the business is identity, as I said, and part of that identity is informed through this transactional data and verifying name and address for people calling CRM call centers. We manage that. We update the record. We're constantly updating identity, linking that to phone number, linking that to email address, linking that to other partial identifiers so that we can apply it in a variety of ways, particularly in marketing, from data onboarding, segmentation. We've built out a rich segmentation platform. We are a leader in marketing mix modeling and media intelligence through the acquisition of a company called McAteer Partners last year. They were a leader in that category. And in customer site personalization, dynamically applying our segmentation model in a digital environment by linking through to cookie or device ID. So you get the picture. Full marketing stack. The only company really in the marketing services ecosystem that does it all from data onboarding through to activation and measurement. So who am I? As I said, we've had that introduction. I founded, built, sold several companies in the measurement category, M-Metrics, which is ComScore's mobile business, MetaResolver, which was acquired by Millennial Media, which served as the foundation actually for a lot of what we built as DataSnap. At Millennial, when they acquired our company, they gave me ownership of data strategy, and I was told, fix this targeting platform. I had a look at the targeting platform and talked to customers, and what was really needed was measurement. We sought to link mobile ad exposure through to downstream behavior. I was Neustar's first customer actually in mobile, where we linked mobile ad exposure to purchase data for a major retailer using IP address to link to Amex Household, and was also the first customer for a company called Placed in Seattle, which is actually, I believe, a partner to Clear Channel on the measurement side. But I was the first customer for attribution. So we linked ad exposure through to footfall for a major telecom brand. And when I looked at that, I was like, there's got to be a better way to measure footfall. And with the advent of Bluetooth beacons, I saw something that was much more granular and needed measurement. And that was the foundation for DataSnap. Throughout all of this and throughout my career prior to that as an analyst, I've been looking at mobile and the potential for mobile location data. There are a whole host of applications we can talk about, from contextual mobile ad targeting, typically geofencing, augmenting the customer profile. We saw a little bit of that in the prior from Clear Channel, where you use location as a vector to get at customer intent, went to an auto dealer, auto intender, or otherwise infer demographics based on where they live and work. We can look at lift measurement for retail, food service, hospitality, and live events, and data activation for out of home. We saw some of that earlier, and I'll go into how we're doing that in a little bit. There are a whole host of sources for location data, and generally, as you move towards larger scale, you wind up with less precision and less ability to make use of that data in interesting ways because, of a lack of identifier you can link to other data. The mobile carrier network, carriers track where you go throughout the day, whether you know it or not, as your phone is constantly logging into the nearest base station, and those base stations have fixed locations. That can be used to build a fairly rich profile of how people navigate the United States. And that data is available in aggregate through companies like AirSage and others. That data typically is made available, it's always made available actually without any sort of personally identifiable information. The way it's linked back to demographics is generally by looking at or trying to infer where people live. And you'll provide some sort of approximate value for household demographics based on that. Ad request exhaust, so increasingly ad request headers. And this was the idea actually behind MetaResolver, which Millennial Media acquired. Ad request headers come with a bunch of intelligence. About 20% of the time you'll see a lat long in an ad request header, in a mobile ad request header. Most of the time it's bogus. It's estimated based on IP address or center point of city or zip code or where someone lives, and it needs to be chucked. But you still wind up, I would say at this stage, with on average with between 500 million and 1 billion ad requests daily that you can use to build a pretty rich picture of where people are located. That data is quite sporadic. Someone has to be live in an app. That app has to be serving an ad. That ad request has to go to typically an ad exchange for that data point to be picked up by a company like PlaceIQ, Ninth Decimal, or us. We work with all those companies actually in partnership. So it's quite sporadic. To get a more continuous view of how people are navigating, companies like Weather, companies like Yelp, they're also continuously tracking where you go. When you opt in for location services, they're tracking where you go in background. And there's a variety of technology companies that provide an SDK that's used by a whole host of applications to fulfill this function in a way that optimizes battery power. And they can become a great source of aggregated location. Again, this data is typically a lot more valuable than the carrier network data. It's more precise, and it has an identity that you can link to other user data. And other sources of data are Wi-Fi access points when you log in to access Wi-Fi. Also, this device, when you walk into a store, into a lot of retail outlets, your device MAC address is picked up by the access point, and that turns into an identifier to see how you navigate the store. It's typically or never linked back to personally identifiable data, but that is happening at a substantial scale today in retail and in other environments, in travel and hospitality. And Bluetooth beacons and physical web. Bluetooth beacons are dumb transmitters. They emit an identity that's picked up by your device. If you have opted in for location services and you have appropriate software in your app, it will pass that identity back, and it will determine categorically where you're located, linked to a categorical point of interest. It's the most precise data you can get. And it is becoming more ubiquitous. Facebook has been giving away beacons to small and medium retailers. Google has gotten behind the idea of Bluetooth as a location enabler through its Eddystone initiative, its physical web initiative. But the scale today for Bluetooth is pretty low. It's the reason I sold DataSnap after a year. I got a good price, but you know, I was expecting to see this stuff being ubiquitous. It's not. Where you see it most pervasive actually is in sports arenas. Every MLB ballpark has Bluetooth installed. They're the largest system-wide deployment I'm aware of with Bluetooth beacon technology. So, you know, again, I believe, just having been knocking around this sector for a while, that we may be doing a disservice by way overselling the potential of location data. I think it's got substantial value. I think we've got to be very careful about how we sell it because it's good, but it's just not that good. Precision quality is a big challenge. Most of the data you see coming from a mobile device will be accurate, in best case, to within 20 feet to 60 feet, which is great for large box retail, not so great for mall-oriented stores. So use with caution and consider with skepticism. I would caution that. You know, I've seen, this is an example of how I've seen people seek to sell location data. We want to reach people in market for insurance. So we're going to look at people who are having a life-changing experience. Seems reasonable. Let's geofence bridal stores in the United States. Now, when you're accurate to within 20 feet, I know there's it's just, it gets really spurious really fast. And trying to scale those segments becomes very challenging. And how do you check the results of that? It's quite hard. So what you wind up with is an inference that sort of people take too far, and there's no real way to check on the other side. So I would just be very careful about inferring intent from location data, particularly because the inputs, along with the location signal itself, has significant issue. Neustar is one of the largest providers of point of interest data in the United States through Localese. I'm familiar with Factual. I've worked with them all as a consumer. They're all awesome, but they all have error. So you're dealing with error times inference. Be careful. That said, this stuff is awesome. It's got tremendous value, and it's really useful, okay? So just be careful. I told you I'd get into the weeds a little. You know, in terms of privacy, that's the big thing we're waiting for with respect. It's always the big concern when you're looking at location data. Carrier data, carriers have really stopped making their data available directly. They've all spun up businesses to sell their location data or to get into the advertising business. They've all sort of discontinued those businesses. They're making data available in aggregate through companies like AirSage. It's a very challenging business to get into. Companies like Telefonica in Europe are doing an outstanding job with their platform, Smart Steps. I think it's great. They don't oversell it. They're very careful about how they make the data available. You know, you can buy, they'll aggregate cohorts of 10 or more. You can't get down to one-to-one targeting using this data. So privacy definitely limits what you can do, particularly if you're a regulated entity like a carrier, right? It makes for easy copy, as has been the case with companies doing Wi-Fi tracking or using Bluetooth beacons to track where people go in New York. The copy writes itself on a Friday when it's a slow news day. And you know, it's easy to get front page on BuzzFeed by saying that your billboard is watching you. And I've seen this happen multiple times with respect to the deployment of Bluetooth beacon networks, with respect to people seeking to use Wi-Fi to anonymously capture data about where people are going. And the first thing that a retailer will do, the first thing that a city government will do is shut that off right now. So privacy is definitely a concern from a perception perspective, even if the reality isn't that bad. Ad and SDK data, who owns the data that this industry is based on? That really has to be determined. A lot of this industry is based on ad exchange exhaust and other data coming from apps. It's the consumer's data first and foremost. Then it's the publisher's data. But by the time it changes hands multiple times, it goes through a bidder, it goes out to a data aggregator. It's somewhat questionable. I've been a bidder, and I've read the terms of services for a lot of these ad exchanges, and they can be quite stringent. So whereas they've let this happen, there is an opportunity to rein it in. And in the UK and in Europe, well, depends on whether the UK stays in Europe, we are seeing regulations come down the pike that will definitively define who owns the data, which will have a significant impact on how we use this data exhaust, which is hugely valuable. You know, I've sort of gone through this. So looking at, oh, I'm going backwards. I'm like, did I? So out-of-home needs measurement for digital. That's, we've already heard from Clear Channel. They've done an awesome job in being actually way out in front in using location data to assign audience to their media. And out-of-home moves pretty slowly, fair to say. Very mature industry, except that digital is a growing portion of that industry. What portion of your media is digital? It's like 5–10%. And if you believe the statistics, about 40 to 50% of revenue is coming from digital out-of-home. Probably less than that in your case, but overall, there's a disproportionate amount spent on digital, 5 to 8x probably, compared to analog. And you may be getting less for your money, right? Because it's rotating. You'll generally have between 5 to 8 ads in rotation, except that the production quality is typically a lot better. You can do a lot more with a moving picture. It's much more memorable. But we need to prove that. and we, and as dynamic ad insertion is enabled and as programmatic, we are seeing the early stages of programmatic out-of-home take shape. We need to justify the premium. We need to justify the premium by validating reach, by validating audience, and allowing people to buy against audience. And we're seeing that particularly we're seeing that not only in the US, but in the UK, where we've been working with several partners on sort of early, what I would call early trials in terms of the application of location data to audience targeting and out-of-home. So Neustar, our focus is to activate audience data by daypart. Again, we're not going to get super precise data about who is walking by a billboard. Again, that's modeled and inferred. I think the modeling can be awesome, and we want to get there eventually. We're activating we've got our own proprietary segmentation platform. I'll get into that in a minute. By time and place. We're starting with daytime segmentation. Again, we're using modeled commuter pattern data to look at daytime versus we have very rich segmentation in a GIS based on where people live, looking at where they work, looking at where they go to school. We can model a daytime segment. We're moving to day part, so you can buy morning commute, daytime, evening commute, nighttime, using location data via data onboarding. We're initially looking at mobile ad exchange and SDK exhaust. We're finding tremendous match rates using the mobile IDs we see in those environments against our element 1 segmentation, upwards of 90%. And we are partnering with companies. Some of our partners are actually activating this data dynamically, looking at in real time, looking at data as it's being made available in ad exchanges. So element 1, element 1 is our segmentation platform. We source behavioral purchase data. We source demographic data from thousands of sources, and we link those back to 172 distinct segments based on parameters like presence of children in household, urbanicity, cost of living, and I'm missing something else, rent versus buy. But what that gives us is a very rich understanding of the US consumer based on what they're purchasing, where they're purchasing, and how much of it they're purchasing, and what their media consumption behavior is. This is an example of an element 1 profile, an element 1 segment, the core affluent family. Again, you can read this yourself, but we have 172 of these, which is obviously catnip to a marketer, and a lot of major brands base their media targeting on the element 1 platform. In using E1 daytime, we assign audience via commuting pattern data. I talked to that. We aggregate data from the US Census Bureau regarding commuting patterns, and we make that, we assign you can assign track-to-track commuting pattern data to model daytime segments for specific locations in the US. Here it is for New York City. We can go further, so we worked with a company that had media inside buildings. We were able to model out index values for propensity to purchase or spend a certain amount of money in men's apparel and other items for this particular media owner. And we can go more broadly and go nationwide and assign element 1 scores and propensity to be in market for certain items at scale out of the box. Again, it's not something we're building for one, it's something we're going to make available broadly. Out-of-home media is one application. Other applications could be placement of retail outlets or QSR outlets, but this is definitely one application for it. And we've gone beyond that, and here we're looking at day part segmentation. How are we doing that? We're using data derived from ad exchanges, mobile SDKs that we can link through our unique onboarding capability through to a household and do this at scale to deliver day part segmentation. Generally, we're not going to claim we're going to be able to deliver that for people walking by a billboard, but definitely within the trading area for a particular out-of-home media ad unit. So that's all I got. Thank you so much. And one day it will be Minority Report. But not tomorrow. But that's all I got. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. So a couple things. I mean, hopefully before I send you off to get more food and drink, because that's really why you're all here, and talk to each other, I mean, what I'm really excited about, and of course I'm a believer of the ARF, is so if you come all the way over here from the creative side, I mean, you saw things like post your Coca-Cola experience and have it be on a billboard in your town so your girlfriend could see that you posted her on a billboard. What a great idea. Or geofencing bridal stores so that you could sell insurance to new brides. Or I mean, all of these creative ideas. And then over here in the middle, we're talking about the kind of measurement that's available today, through radar and all those different things so that you could take away from it. And then we also here at the ARF have all the stuff that I don't understand at all that Seamus spoke about to give you a little bit of caution and make sure that as you move across this spectrum, you're taking advantage of it all and knowing what you could get today and what's going to be available tomorrow. So hopefully we're spurring a lot of ideas and some new thoughts, and you'll all be on the stage with case studies of things that sparked here today, and then you went and put it in action. So with that, let me give you an opportunity to catch up to all of the people who spoke, get some more refreshments. We want to thank Protégé and all of our sponsors today.